Hi, I'm Rebecca with Cherished Children Ministries. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be about the concrete sequential learner. I'll be talking to you about the concrete sequential adult, the concrete sequential parent, the concrete sequential child, and how to get along with the concrete sequential, as well as different stressors that might trigger them. So this could help you in your homeschool journey or even your schooling journey wherever you are, no matter what kind of schooling that you do. I teach classes on all of this, on struggling learners, how to get your struggling learner thriving. It includes the different learning styles. It includes any spectrum kinds of disorders such as dyslexia, ADD, ADHD, autism, and other spectrum kinds of disorders. It's over 6 hours of step-by-step instruction with all the flashcards and tools as well as assessments that you need to get your learners thriving today. If you want to check that out, go ahead and click the link below. So remember, we have concrete learners and we have random learners, and then we have a combination of all those different kinds of styles, including concrete sequential and concrete random, abstract sequential and abstract random, and we're going to be talking about all of those in this series. I will put a link in the description box for some free resources for you so you can go ahead and give your child an assessment and see what kind of learner that he or she might be. It might be beneficial for you as a parent or even a teacher to go ahead and take that assessment as well, just to see how you get along with others and how you can help different students in your classroom as well as your other children at home. Today I want to focus on the concrete sequentials and just kind of let you know how they bring some different input into the table. So let's just say that you are wanting to plan an event and we have all kinds of different learning styles present for planning the event. Then it comes time to actually send out invitations. And the concrete sequentials just so happen to be absent this day, hypothetically, okay? So our abstract learners in the room, they decide that they think it would be a really great idea to fill helium balloons with invitations inside of them. That's a great idea, right? The next meeting, the concrete sequentials are present along with our randoms, and the randoms have announced how they have decided that they're going to send the invitations out. Well, when the concrete sequentials learn about how they're going to send the invitations out, they start having red flags going off. And one might ask, do you even know how far those helium balloons, when they are filled, do you know how far they go before they actually come back down? And none of the randoms really know because they didn't really think about that. However, the concrete sequential does think about this. And so when the concrete sequential says, well, it actually can float as far as about 200 to 300 miles away, then the randoms actually understand, you know, that was a great idea, but maybe not so great because we really do want to invite our community to this event. And that obviously is not 200 to 300 miles away. Sometimes the randoms accuse the concrete sequentials and they get a bad rap because they think maybe they just want to kill the joy of something. But really, they're not trying to do that at all. It's just because they're trying to make good contributions that are valuable. Okay, so let's talk about the concrete sequential adult. The concrete sequential adult sees the practical sides of issues. They just really have a knack for knowing how to get the most out of anything, and they think linear. So they think step by step. They're step-by-step thinkers. They're step-by-step doers. They are straightforward. Verbal communication from them, they might seem just a little bit bossy. They have the attitude of if it needs to get done, then just do it. And if it needs to be said, then just go ahead and say it. They are no nonsense communicators. They say what they mean, and they mean what they say. They expect you to do that as well. Say what you mean and mean what you say. They give practical gifts. They are good at making and keeping schedules. They're really great at organizing and keeping systems. They are your list makers. They pick up the slack, they pick up the pieces, they clean up the messes, all of those kinds of things. They would actually rather do things for themselves than to leave things not done at all. But you actually might get a note from a concrete sequential if this does happen, just reminding you to make sure that you help out next time, or maybe making you feel just a little bit guilty for not helping. So now let's talk about the concrete sequential parent. The concrete sequential parent has a sense of order and responsibility and a need for a beginning, a need for a middle, and a need for an end. Communication with the concrete sequential children is like this. They speak in a specific manner, and the concrete sequential parent actually expects the same in return from the children. The concrete sequential parent believes that a yes or no question deserves a yes or no answer, nothing lengthy. So you can see where problems may arise whenever we have a random child and a concrete parent, or vice versa, in a lot of these different ways. The concrete sequential parent expects instructions to be followed without question or procrastination. The concrete sequential parent clearly lays out the rules for children, and they are expected to follow them, as well as suffering the consequences for disobedience. Both are specific, both are consistent. The concrete sequential parent becomes frustrated when they have to say things more than one time. They also become exasperated at the child who seems to just choose the hard way to do what the concrete sequential parent sees as a simple task. The concrete sequential parent has really high expectations in children's behavior as well as academic success, and they do not accept excuses like, well, it's too hard, or I don't get it, or I don't really like it. The concrete sequential parent doesn't care. That's not how they think. They just expect it to get done. The concrete sequential parent just says, well, you need to do what needs to be done, whether you like it or not. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes we just have to do things that we don't like because that is how life goes. The concrete sequential parent expects the child to do what he or she is told or suffer the consequences. The threat of punishment should be enough to prevent bad behavior is what the concrete sequential parent believes. The concrete sequential parent oftentimes clashes with that strong-willed or that concrete random child, because the concrete random child is usually the one who's testing the waters, whereas the concrete sequential parents would have done absolutely anything to avoid the consequences, but maybe not their concrete random child. It's really difficult for them to understand this. So now let's talk about the concrete sequential child. The concrete sequential child, very similarly to the adult and the parent, is very organized and specific and very conscientious. The concrete sequential child might ask repeatedly for clarification or maybe more detailed instructions. They really want to make sure they're doing things the right way or the way that is expected of them. The concrete sequential children are most always more secure when there is a pattern to follow or a model to copy, or maybe someone goes first to show them how things are done. When trying to get a concrete sequential child to do chores, these kids actually respond best to tangible rewards and hands-on kinds of methods. Oftentimes, a schedule or checklist on the refrigerator is a really great motive for the young concrete sequential child. Stars, stickers, even money sometimes, all of these can be effective rewards for a job well done for the concrete sequential child. Consistency is especially important, and concrete sequential kids might frequently have to remind their more random parents of a promise or a missed step in the routine. It may not even actually really occur to that random parent to create a checklist, much less keep it up to date. But your concrete sequential kids really desire this. So it's really teamwork, and just kind of whenever you know this, if you're a parent that's a random, whenever you know these things about your kids, you can actually work together and keep more unity in your home or even in your classroom with your group of learners each year. whenever you know what kind of learners that you have. The concrete sequential kids will usually take parents at their word. Since concrete sequential kids tend to be very literate in their communication, the more abstract parents might find their instructions misunderstood because they assumed that their concrete sequential kid understood what was meant, not just what was said. Concrete sequential kids catch a lot of mistakes because they are looking at everything in a literal sense. So we're going to talk just a little bit about how concrete sequentials thrive, what stresses them, and how to reduce those stressors. So concrete sequentials actually thrive with organization and predictability, schedules, routines, tangible rewards, and literal language. The concrete sequentials can oftentimes be stressed by having too much to do, not knowing expectations, not knowing where to begin, vague or general directions, not having a clean or quiet place, and not seeing an example. Now, stresses can be lessened by just giving these concrete sequentials specific time and space for quiet, uninterrupted work, by asking what you can do to help, by providing a concrete example of what is expected, and just practicing what if scenarios to prepare for the unexpected with your concrete sequential child. Concrete sequentials actually have many things that other styles really admire. A few of those things are other styles really admire how the concrete sequential styles do stay organized, how they pay attention to detail, how they complete their tasks, how productive they are, and how stable and dependable these learners are. Now, oftentimes, like with most things, there are negative perceptions, but that's not really the case in our different learning styles. They're just kind of things that we need to be aware of. They're not necessarily negative. They're just perceptions, okay? So others might give the negative perception that these concrete sequentials are perfectionists and things often seem more important than people, which is not usually true. Sometimes they're thought of as just having tunnel vision. Again, not necessarily true, just how they learn. They're often thought of as having lack of adaptability or maybe being impatient. And let's just talk a little bit about how to get along with the concrete sequentials, because in our different learning environments, whether that is a classroom or whether that is homeschool with siblings or with parents that are different learners, or later in the workforce, wherever we may work, or college, or whatever kind of trade school we attend, or whatever it is, we're going to have to learn how to get along with our different learners that are around us. So some tips that I have for you in getting along with the concrete sequential learners are these. Be consistent, be organized, practice common sense, pull your own weight, remember that they have feelings too, give advance notice so that these guys can prepare for that, follow the instructions, tell them exactly what you want, take responsibility for your own actions, and then do not deal in generalities. Make sure that you're being precise with them. I hope you enjoyed this video about the concrete sequential learner. Today we discussed the concrete sequential adult, the concrete sequential parent, the concrete sequential student, how these students thrive, stresses that they often have, and how to help them lessen those stressors. We talked about what others admire most about the concrete sequential, as well as negative perceptions others might have that are not necessarily true. And finally, we discussed the different ways to get along with a concrete sequential learner. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please make sure you give a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you for watching this video.